Lethal Company is a multiplayer horror game where you visit deserted moons and loot them for petty scraps, all while having to deal with unique and creative entities that want to game end you.
Oh no.
But that's not what I'll be talking about today. Today I will be talking about the rip-offs of Lethal Company on the App Store. The first game I'll be talking about is Lethal Game Horror Multiplayer. So this game is rated a 3.6 on the App Store amongst 11 people, with the reviews either saying it's better than Lethal Company or do not get. Now surprisingly enough, unlike every other ripoff on the App Store, this game's developer is still working on it, and the game gets frequent updates. So considering how much the developer cares about this game, it might actually be good, right? Yeah, it's not that good, but it is the best game I'll be covering today, even though that's not a very high bar. So you can play this game with other people, but there aren't any public servers, and I felt like asking my friends to play Lethal Game Horror Multiplayer with me would probably mark the end of our relationship, so I decided to go in solo. Entering the game, you spawn on a spaceship with a to-do list with an image of a door on it. You know, just in case you forgot what those look like. At first glance, the most noticeable thing about this game is the UI. It's cluttered and inconsistent, plus is one of those UIs with a store button in the corner of the game at all times. This game, much like the original, has spooky buildings you can enter, and after you do enter one of these buildings, the game just turns off all background music. Which is funny because in the description, it's mentioned that the game has an atmospheric and terrifying soundtrack. Man, this soundtrack is wildin' right now, let me be honest. Now in the buildings you can find scraps, weapons, and also enemies. Oh no, spooky. But not really. The enemies are incredibly slow and you can simply outwalk them, so they aren't a real threat. The real run killer in this game is the lightning. If you have any scrap on you, even if it's not metal, you will be struck by the divine light of God every 30 seconds. And because of how awkward the controls are, it's not an easy task dropping all of your inventory before you get zapped. So 90% of my playthroughs ended because I heard this sound and I didn't react fast enough. Now look, you can say that's a skill issue, but please don't. So overall, this game is pretty alright. It didn't have any intrusive ads, and it did try its best to bring the Lethal Company experience to the mobile market. Even though, yeah, it's not really good. So let's move on to the next game. But first, have you ever wanted to say the N-word with no consequences? If yes, you are weird. Why, dude? No. If your answer was no, how about joining my Discord server and giving me all of your money? Thank you. The second game on my list is Scary Lethal Horror Planet. Now, the store page screenshots for this game look pretty promising. It's kind of like Lethal Company, but in 4K. And reading the description, it talks about some of the game's key features like immersive horror experience and also a gripping storyline.
Stop the cap.
When you open the game, you are greeted with 2 ads back to back because you dared navigate the menu of this game with your filthy hands. When you actually enter the first level, you spawn on Gordian, the company's moon, you know, with the crates and stuff, and wait a second. Yeah! When going to other moons, you are basically told to get a piece of scrap and retrieve it to the spaceship, and that's where the level ends. That was not a typo, by the way. The game literally marks the exact location of a singular piece of scrap and asks you to retrieve it. So the only challenge in this game is the monster, which is this fast creature that sometimes runs across the screen and damages you slightly. You can't avoid his attacks either, so you just have to accept defeat. So basically the best way to play this game is to not play it at all. The game takes the fetch quest aspect of Lethal Company and ignores all the surrounding mechanics that makes it actually fun to play. So yeah, don't play this game. The next game I wanted to talk about is Scary Lethal House Survival. So This game has a fairly negative score at a 1.6 out of 5, with most of the reviews talking about how there is no company and that this is the worst game ever, some even going as far as saying they want to forget this game forever. After reading these reviews, I was even more interested in finding out how bad this game actually is. So the game starts with the protagonist's car breaking down and him saying, "Oh no, my car. I need a mechanic to solve this issue." Yeah, I think we're past that point, my man. We then get a signal from Ava's phone telling us that her location is in the factory nearby, so we head over to investigate. Now, mind you, the game never explains why we are tracking Ava's phone. She is not a relative, she's not our partner, she is our friend. Okay then, tracking your friend's location at all times. Pretty normal to me, nothing suspicious at all. Entering the factory, we realize that the developer doesn't know what a factory is because this is not a factory. This is a 1980s psychiatric hospital. The gameplay loop for this game is actually really simple. You are told what your goal is by the text at the bottom of the screen and basically go around doing random things until you are told what your next task is. While we go around doing these tasks, we are also given tidbits of lore, like this magazine talking about a spooky factory experiment, or this note written in blood talking about how this factory's got a ghost hanging out. Oh, it's just hanging out? Well, I mean, if it's chill like that, there's nothing to worry about. And he's not friendly. Oh lord, we are done for. We are done for. Pack our stuff. We're going out of here. He's not friendly? We're done for. By the way, this is the ghost in question. You good there, buddy? You need some help? Nah, you got it, dude. You got it. Not gonna lie, man is definitely on that fence. And then we find a suspicious disc. Is that a JoJo character? Now, I like to take a moment and remind you, this is supposed to be a Lethal Company ripoff. The footage on the disc is a recording of an experiment gone wrong.
Everything checks out in her report. She's all set for the experiment. It looks like we're good to go. Now, I'll activate the machine to transform her into a supernatural entity. Here's a syringe filled with the chemical. I'll inject it into her now. Oh no, what happened to her?
What do you mean what happened to her? You said you were gonna turn her into a supernatural entity. What did you expect was gonna happen? Now there's a lot of things to address in that cutscene, but if you suffer from level 2000 brain rot like me, you probably noticed that meme sound effect at the end. That right there is the only reason I decided to make this video. Anyways, soon after we find an imprisoned scientist who dumps exposition on us, saying how they got here a month ago and that they got attacked by an evil sprite.
Want a Sprite cranberry?
Man, ever since the downfall of Pepsi Man, these streets have not been the same. So at this point, the game became a little tedious. I love the broken cutscenes and barely legible dialogue, but the quests had become unbearable. Go from one side of the mansion to the other and come back, with no real gameplay. At some point there was even a quest for drinking water. What is this, Death Stranding? So the rest of the story is basically save Ava, get information that the evil sprite is weak to fire, blow some things up and escape. Except, you can't. No, really, I think I might be the only person who has ever played this game this far, and I'm proud to say, this game is not finished. There is no ending to this game. You can't escape the spooky factory, because the developer just forgot to add the end trigger to the game. Overall, it goes without saying, this is not Lethal Company, man. I've been lied to. So yeah, don't play this. So the next game on the list is Scary Lethal Moon Survival. I'm gonna give you guys a little spoiler. This is the worst game I've played, ever. So basically on the game, you land on a moon, you go and pick up random loot and return to the spaceship. So just like the other games, right, Jax? No. This game only has one map. And for different levels, the objectives for the same map increases. The game also has enemies that are just normal guys, okay? Not to mention, these guys are both blind and deaf. You cannot alert them if you wanted to. But by far, the worst part of this game is the ads. Every button is an ad. Every time you click on the UI, you get an ad. And I mean every single time. This is the average experience of playing this game. It's great. It simulates listening to smooth jazz music while your house is getting raided by the IRS. And mind you, that happens every time. I have nightmares of this game's ads. It keeps me up at night. I cannot sleep anymore. Anywho, as I said before, this game is boring, repetitive, and has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And that was the last game. As a whole, when it comes to games like Lethal Company that are relatively cheap, there is really no reason to play these mobile clones. Especially because these games are almost never actually trying to deliver the experience of playing Lethal Company or any game they claim to be. They just want to get the most amount of ad money in the shortest period of time with as little work as possible. So yeah, don't play these games. Yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching and bye.